guys, welcome to a new episode of In Other Words.
So this is a podcast where we're going to be talking about a wide variety of different topics, from doing album reviews to racism. So in other words, we're going to be talking about all the things.
And just a shout out to YBO, Your Brain On. They're the band that did our intro song. You can check them out on Instagram.
Yeah, and this episode we just want to shout out Dunleavy Apparel as our local brand. So it is run by one of our friends, Nina.
She's the best.
Yeah, so she makes really cool clothes, from Mickey Mouse pajamas to festival wear. It's really good quality. She's really talented, so definitely check her out on Instagram. Dunleavy Apparel.
Awesome. So today is going to be a very interesting
Yes,
podcast.
but more serious
Yes.
than Hamilton.
More serious than what you've heard in the past. I think it's something we've spoken a lot about over the past couple of months. And just a disclaimer, you're allowed to disagree with us. We have no problem with that, but we just want to share our thoughts. We are Christians, so we do have certain beliefs that might differ from a lot of people, but we do encourage you to listen.
Yeah.
Because I think we have some things to say that not a lot of people have said before.
Yeah. And we're not trying to call out people or condemn people or anything like that. Everyone's entitled to their own beliefs.
Exactly.
That's life.
So we're going to be talking about sex and
Birth control.
and abortion. I think those are our main
topics.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's exciting. I'm a bit nervous, but
Same, because neither of us have had sex. So
I know. Oh,
how much
so embarrassing.
how much can we really learn from us?
Yeah, we're not talking about the biological aspects.
No. Okay, so what do we believe about sex?
So if you don't know, Christians mostly believe that we should wait till marriage. We believe that God has made sex for one man and one woman together. Obviously, so many people have not done that, which is all right. But for Christians, most of us try to wait for marriage.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people say like move with the times. That's very traditional. But I think for us, we see sex as far more than the physical.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other repercussions and things that come with sex that I think even a lot of TV shows and stuff will look over.
Yeah.
But I think, and it's something I actually heard in a YouTube video, it was two Christians who recently got married, but they were non-believers before, so they had both had sex before, but never with each other. They waited till marriage because they were Christians.
Yeah.
And what they said is that it was completely different, them sleeping together.
Yeah.
It was like a spiritual experience. And I also think that, and I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think that there is a spiritual aspect and a vulnerability that comes with sex that a lot of people don't realize in the moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge reason why we wait, is just because I think once you've slept with multiple people, it can put a huge strain on your marriage. I know some people have often said like it's very hard to feel insecure. I mean, it's very easy to feel insecure.
Yeah.
Because you know your partner slept with multiple people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's mainly something that we believe God has designed specifically within the covenant of marriage to join two people. So that is why we stand by waiting for marriage.
And it's by no means an easy thing to do. And I mean, we're talking about this the other night, like back in the Bible days, like young people were pretty much just not forced to marry, but arranged to be married.
Yes.
At a very young age, so it was kind of
you were
easy
married
to
by
wait,
like
I guess.
14.
Yeah, but now I mean people are dating for years and years. Some people don't even want to get married. And like, I mean, I've been together. I've been a person. I've been dating my boyfriend Devin for 5 years this year.
But actually 6.
And I think a lot of Christians go into the same boat, because you kind of know you want to be with the person, but at the same time, like, you don't have the financial means to get married, or you're just way too young to get married. That's how I'm feeling. I'm like, I'm a baby. I can't get married right now.
Be a wife.
Yeah, so it is difficult. And I also want to just clarify that we know that a lot of people, well, I don't know if it's a lot, but from a lot of people that I've spoken to, they say that sex is not really a big thing for them. And you know what, if that's how you feel, then that's cool.
Yeah.
But for us, as our personal beliefs, we think it is more than just a physical thing.
Yeah. And it's not easy.
No.
Not any Christian, I can't speak for all, but if you're in a relationship, you are going to think about it. It's going to be something that you're going to struggle with from time to time.
Yeah.
So anyone who says, oh, just wait for marriage, it's so easy, all you have to do is just not have sex.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that.
No. And I mean, a lot of what comes into it is it's like setting boundaries, and it's doing all these things, and it can be really difficult, I think, to know what to do. And it's very personal. Like, there's no specific rules like, oh, you can only kiss before marriage and that's all. Like, that's all you can do. Or you can only hold hands. Like, there's nothing like that.
In the Bible.
There's nothing like that in the Bible. I do believe it's a personal thing. Everyone has different levels of temptation, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
So some people can handle it, some people really can't.
Yeah. Okay, however,
this
is something Danielle feels very passionately about, is just the purity culture within the church.
Yeah, so purity culture kind of gives this idea that when you don't have sex before marriage, you're this pure person. If you do have sex before marriage, then you're all of a sudden impure, and it's just a whole big mess. And at its core, I think it teaches that sex is bad. It gives a very negative attitude towards sex, which is not what we're about. Like, we don't want that. And I think it can be really toxic because, I mean, God has designed sex to be a beautiful thing in marriage.
There's a whole book in the Bible, Song of Songs, which is literally about sex.
Exactly. So God has designed sex for that. So I feel like if you're growing up in an environment where you are supposed to remain pure, and if you have sex, then all of a sudden you're impure and you're bad and sex is bad, it's so difficult to adjust from that mindset to all of a sudden being married, and then, oh, you can have sex, but at the same time you feel like, oh, but sex is bad, how can I have sex now?
Yeah.
Which is dumb. Never thought I would be saying sex so much.
In one conversation. I also think even just the word pure.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things when we speak about like diamonds and gold and just even water. It's like you get purified water.
Yeah.
But how, like in the Christian circles,
it's mostly used for
sex. And that's not what pure means. Like if you look it up in the dictionary, you won't say that pure is not having sex.
Exactly.
So,
and I think just the idea that you're pure when you don't have sex is just quite flawed, because nobody is ever pure. We're all doing questionable things all the time. We're all sinning.
And the only way
all the time.
It's only in Jesus where we are.
And absolutely, I just really feel that people like who come to the church, let's say, and they've had sex, and the topic kind of gets brought up, oh, we don't have sex before marriage or whatever, they kind of feel like, oh, well, I'm condemned now, there's no point.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about. I believe that God mostly put the kind of has that expectation for us because it's a way of helping us and a way of
it's for our best, not to like ruin the fun or to condemn us if that's something that people have, if you've fallen into.
So it's not the end of the world if you do end up having sex. And I mean, a lot of people have, and you can still find grace with Jesus.
Yeah.
And through Jesus.
Agreed. I also think with that comes this modesty thing.
Yeah.
Which I struggle with because I've found often in very traditional conservative Christian circles is that like women are to cover up everywhere.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be a stumbling block to men.
Yeah.
But like a man walks around shirtless and there's no problem.
Exactly.
And for me, like the double standard that comes with modesty, I find difficult.
Yeah. It's very tough.
Yes. And I also think, yes, biologically, I think men are...
I think they're probably more
visually.
And this is not, like, I'm not trying to stereotype.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, we can't assume that every man, that's all they think about is sex. Like, it's
I feel
not
like
the
that's
case.
kind of offensive anyway.
I know. I would be offended if I were a guy. So, yeah, I think me personally, the way I treat modesty is first of all, specifically to ladies, please don't dress for men, dress for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Always.
And then...
Unless you want to dress for a man. But...
and then for me, it's like, I ask myself, am I wearing what I'm wearing? Let's just say I'm wearing shorts that are shorter than what I would usually wear. Am I wearing this to look attractive or to look alluring? Like, what are my intentions behind what I'm wearing? And yeah, I think we need to be cautious of how we present ourselves, but at the same time, like, to judge someone based purely on what they're wearing and to label someone like a stumbling block.
Yeah, it's really quite sexist. I'm not gonna lie, I don't enjoy it. And yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll probably speak more into modesty culture in a different episode.
Yes, definitely.
Because there's a lot to say about it.
We've had some interesting personal experiences.
Yeah. But yeah, I think just going back to sex before marriage, like I said, it's quite a personal thing. And I think choosing to abstain, it's more of like a personal decision, if you know what I mean. So a pastor can tell the church, don't have sex before marriage because, I don't know, so you can remain pure, whatever. But if you haven't made that personal connection as a believer that I'm choosing to wait until marriage so that I can honor God in that way, you're never going to remain abstinent.
It's going to become a thing of like, I'm following a rule and it's frustrating.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think that kind of covers how the church views sex. But another thing, just a disclaimer with regards to sex, and something we just wanted to mention in this episode, even though it's not necessarily important to the topic as a whole, it's still super important, and that's just the whole idea of if someone is having sex, and anything regards to sex, consent is the most important thing.
Always.
So,
and non-Christians are not expected to abide by this, like, by any means. I mean, like technically when you have sex, you're not losing a part of yourself, you're not becoming a different person. Just from a biological point of view, you still remain who you are. And we as Christians choose to live that way, but we absolutely do not look down on anyone who chooses to live differently, because that's your own decision. And like we said, as long as you're practicing safe sex, consent, you do you.
Yeah. I also think, like, if anyone ever asked me, Zara, what do you think about sex before marriage? I would say I don't recommend it. However, and I view this in every area of my life, is I can never hold someone else to the standards that I hold myself. As a believer, you can't expect people who live by a different worldview to
live the same way
to what you perceive to be right.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And just leading into the next topic, we strongly advocate for birth control and also good sex education. Not just don't have sex education, because in the history of forever, that has never worked. People are always going to practice sex, so it's best to teach safe sex.
Yeah. And I think also with birth control, a lot of Christians actually believe that birth control is kind of you're giving up, or you're taking for yourself control that belongs to God. Like, you're planning your life, like, and that's just...
Yeah, I always say to that, because I personally see birth control as more of a preventative measure. So if you're riding in a car, you would put a seatbelt on, right? But you're not seeing it as, oh, I'm taking control away from God. The reality is that if God wants you to get pregnant and have a child,
you will.
Birth control will not stop it.
I always say, this is the best example I use, is most birth control methods, which we're actually going to talk about in a future episode. So excited about that. But there's no birth control method that is 100%.
Yeah. So
if God wants you to have a child,
it's going to
have a child. You can ask Ross and Rachel. So do you want to chat a little bit about the sex education that maybe we had?
Yeah.
In school?
In South Africa, you have life orientation, And that is, I mean, like, I'm not saying it's not an important subject. Obviously, for people living in poorer areas with lesser education than in more privileged areas, it's quite an important subject. But other than that, when it comes to sex, you kind of just taught about STDs and condoms.
I think even in those areas, like, it doesn't actually matter universally. I personally, and don't hate on me, but personally, I think the subject is flawed as a whole. It doesn't teach,
no, it is for sure,
like, the root issues of a lot of things.
Yeah, like, I don't know, there are a lot of ways that they can better the subject. And I mean, I'm quite grateful that I think we probably have a better sex education than America, to be honest. Like, some of the things I've heard, I'm like, ooh, are you sure?
Lol, yeah, that's true.
Which I think a lot of Christian parents are quite nervous and cautious of having their children learn about contraceptives, birth control, learning about how to practice safe sex, because it's kind of this idea of, oh, if my child learns how to do it, then they're just going to want to go do it. But like I said, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. Like, it's more of a personal decision than anything else. And how much more important is it that your child will be practicing safe sex rather than having an unwanted pregnancy or getting an STD?
So yeah, I think I always use this example. I specifically remember in life orientation, I think I was in grade 9, and I had to do a project on syphilis.
Yeah.
So I can tell you about syphilis, but I can't tell you anything other than that. They just taught me about the disease. It was like they were trying to scare me away from having sex.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you're not taught about anything else, really.
Exactly.
So...
And yeah, I mean, abstinence teaching, while you might teach it more in Christian circles, and I mean, if you personally choose to abstain, either, like, even if it's not for religious reasons, it's a perfectly valid response, and it's quite an effective way not to have the consequences. But it's much more effective, I think, to teach like a more holistic view of sex. So teaching from, like, every aspect, really.
Yeah, I agree. And also, just going back to the idea of abstinence in general, I think sometimes that is worshipped.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, even I had a conversation with someone, and they said let's say that people don't believe in birth control within marriage. If they don't want to have a baby, then they just abstain until they want to.
Yeah.
Which is not what God intended.
Not at all.
For sex.
Like, they speak very explicitly in the Bible, like, don't withhold sex from your partner.
So we don't know much about that, but also just, I think abstinence shouldn't be worshipped either. Yeah. Because that just feeds this idea that sex is bad.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, preach abstinence, but that's not going to stop someone from having sex if they want to have sex.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we can't ignore just also, I think, the historical aspect of abstinence and being a virgin in general. I mean, it was pretty much used mostly for women.
Yes.
Because men have always been able to do whatever they want, actually. But for women, they were more of a prized possession if they were virgins. Mm-hmm. If they had already had sex before they got married, then they could never be married again because they soiled.
Yeah.
Which I hate, by the way. I hate, like, that whole thing of... I remember in grade 6 we learned about... It was like a kind of sex education thing.
I literally don't even remember past.
I can't even remember, but they took, like, a paper or money or something, and everyone around the class goes and, like, they touch it and they, like, crinkle it up, and at the end it's like, would you still want to have this paper money as a representation of what happens to you when you have sex with a lot of people? And I'm like, bro, let's not do that. Like, people are people. Wow. Like, we're not objects. It's such a flawed way of thinking.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
No, it's quite terrible. But basically, we advocate for birth control. We advocate for good sex education, a holistic approach.
Yeah.
And that's what we enjoy. And I mean, this kind of also takes away it helps to alleviate the issue of unwanted pregnancies, unplanned pregnancies, and all that drama, which, by the way, is the main cause of abortion.
So here's the issue, is if you are advocating that you are anti-abortion and you're telling women not to have an abortion, but you're also saying birth control is not.
If you're
right.
only advocating for abstinence,
Like,
it's not going to happen,
It's not going to happen. So I think in terms of abortion, do you want to chat about your views and then I will chat about mine?
Yeah. So
it's this whole idea of mostly people say pro-life versus pro-choice, but I definitely have other views about that.
Yes. So, well, first of all, I mean, I think just those two labels are they're quite broad, but they're also quite exclusive. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like you can have a specific view, but it comes with a lot of ... because it kind of doesn't allow you the opportunity to explain why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think where my views are is that I am kind of like a pro-life standard because I do believe that the babies are alive. The fetus. Is it feti? I do believe that the fetuses are alive and that they should have the right to life. But at the same time, I do believe that abortion should be legal, just because I have seen, well, like once you take away abortion, you're not taking away abortion, you're taking away safe abortion. And that's so many other lives that are ruined at the same time, at risk. So for me and for anyone who asks me, I'll say, hello, like, don't have an abortion. I believe that there are lots of consequences, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna like try to force my ideas on people. And I mean, we'll get onto more of the what we think should be done, rather, like in terms of having more birth control and better adoption things, all of that.
So I also think with regards to, like Danielle was saying, the reality is I'm never going to advocate for make abortion illegal and advertise it and everyone should just like have sex, fall pregnant and have an abortion. Like, it's not that.
No.
However, and I don't necessarily know if I can say that I'm on exactly the same wavelength. That's the way I feel as well, though. But something that Danielle's saying is, I think we've learned it's human nature. If someone tells you not to do something, you'll probably still find a way to do it. If your parents are telling you not to have sex, it's probably going to make a lot of teenagers want to have sex more. Even during lockdown, like when they outlawed cigarettes, I did not speak to a single cigarette smoker that was not still getting cigarettes. Like, if someone takes your access away, you will find another way. And that's what Danielle was saying.
And if people are desperate enough, because I think that is often the case, it's just desperation, and it's such a difficult issue. I really hope that I never find myself in a position like that. But where there's a will, there's a way, essentially.
Yeah. And then, so if we're pro-life, I kind of want to chat a little bit about something that I've come to realize lately, is I think there is a big difference between being pro-life and being anti-abortion.
Yes, 100%.
And I feel like a lot of people who are just anti-abortion or call themselves quote-unquote pro-life but aren't really, are the kind of people, very often conservative Christians, which breaks my heart, is like they're standing outside of abortion clinics. Like
screaming at people and intimidating people. But at the same time, they would never go and adopt that child, and they would never go and do anything to help that child post-birth.
Exactly. So for me, pro-life is seeing the value in life.
Yes.
In someone's life. So if you're going to see the value of an unborn child and you want so desperately to protect that child, then you should feel exactly the same for the babies that are actually born. And the reality is that a lot of people don't have or have abortions because they can't afford to raise children. And it's a reality. And I think in a lot of countries, I can't speak for all countries because I haven't done enough research on that. But for the most part, the foster and adoption system is a mess.
It's terrible.
Like,
and people don't want to put their children through it. That's just a reality.
So for me, it's like, I so badly want to tell everyone, don't have abortion. Like, someone will want your baby. Like, but the reality is that hasn't been the case. And so if you're screaming like, don't have an abortion, but you're not willing to step up and adopt, then I don't know. It's like, do you have a right to say something? That's my thing, is like, why are we not pouring more into the looking after these lives that have been brought into the world but are still neglected? So for me, that is the difficulty.
No, I completely agree. I think it's a difficult topic in general, and I think Christians are very quick to kind of just say, oh, it's bad. But people don't want to like try and understand what goes on inside a mother's brain or her heart before she makes a decision, because let's be real, it's a difficult decision. I think it goes against most of our instincts.
Yeah, as like, I mean, I don't know how much maternal instinct I have.
I have probably 5%.
But I think being in that position, very few people would just say, oh, okay, whatever, I have a baby inside me.
It's a difficult decision, and there's a lot that goes into it. And I think it's important, like, if you ever, like, looking at that decision, that you look at, like, all parts of it, because I think mentally, I think it can do a lot of harm as well.
Damage,
I mean, not for everyone. I've heard of people who have an abortion and they say, like, I'm so glad I did that because I would never be able to raise a child. And I'm like, cool. Sad, but
you do
you. So I think it's so important that we try and understand every aspect of it. Definitely look into all things. And I mean, the great thing about living in our day and age is that we have so much access to information.
That's the thing. And so, full circle, this is why we're saying birth control like is so important, teaching people so that we can prevent abortions.
Exactly.
And like, my heart, honestly, like, it might sound like I'm saying, oh, abortion, like, if you have to, but my heart breaks. And I think of like some cities like New York, I think it's New York,
it is,
where you can have an abortion up, like, your baby can be
aborted until
about to be born.
I think it is quite rare that they do late-term abortions because it's so risky. But it is a reality.
So it honestly breaks my heart. And even before I was a Christian, I didn't believe in abortions. Because I actually watched a TV show, and this woman, she was possibly going to lose her life if she had a child because she had some condition. You know how dramatic these shows are. And her husband was like, I can't lose you, like, we need to abort the baby while we can. And she said no. And she said something that I'll never forget. She said, what if this life is going to change the world? And for me, that's just always been my attitude, is just, and no, you can't live in what ifs, but like, God has a plan for each and every single life. And there's a reason why people fall pregnant. So that's why I'm against abortion. However, we need to be open-minded, and we also need to understand that if you are going to say you are pro-life, that comes with a huge responsibility of stepping up and saying, you know what, maybe I should adopt. You know, maybe I should look into how the foster care system actually works before telling someone don't have an abortion.
Or just put your child up for adoption. A very interesting thing that just popped into my brain is pro-life. Like, would it not include the woman having the child as well? I think, I don't know, like, I mean, this is not going to be like more of a conversation topic, but it was just a thought now. Like, if a woman is put into a position where it's like, it's your life or the baby's, like,
whose life do you choose if you're pro-life?
It's so tough. But I think if you're going to be protesting against abortion, this is like, you also need to be protesting for more access to birth control, even free birth control, I'd say. You want to put pressure on the government to
actually speak and make the whole system better, you know?
Exactly. So, like, don't make having a child be so expensive. And I mean, provide support for the mother. You want to have better childcare systems in place. Support the mother financially even. Like, there's so much that goes into it. And I mean, I'm sure, like, we can't give all solutions right now. Maybe if one day I'm in a position of power, I can.
I'll back you.
But there's so much more that goes into it. And I wish that Christians as a whole would speak more about that as well.
I think that's one thing, is we don't talk about sex in the church.
We don't talk about any of these topics.
And I mean, no, you're not going to stand up on a Sunday and preach a sermon on sex. But don't shy away from these conversations in your own homes, in your friendship groups. And I think that was a huge part, like, a reason we wanted to start this podcast, is just to open the conversation on everything, really. So those are our thoughts from people that have never had sex or been married or have needed to have an abortion. But we have thoughts that we just wanted to share.
And I mean, this is, like Zara said, this is really just what we want the whole podcast to be about. It's just sharing stories, sharing opinions, and also just creating an environment. If you have a different opinion to us, you can be thinking like, don't really think about it that way, or no, I don't really agree, and that's fine. Like, I think society kind of thrives on having differing agreements and on deliberation.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's how you have a more rounded idea of the world.
I agree. So yeah, I'm excited for what's to come, and specifically with regards to like female health, we do have some exciting stuff coming up with that. We also have some more relaxed, hilarious stuff. But if there's something that you want us to discuss, please let us know.
Yeah.
And we also want to know, like, what do you think of what we're saying? Do you think that we're talking complete rubbish?
Yeah.
Please let us know. If you agree, let us know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hope
Bye.
that you have a good week ahead. Bye.